Tonight's specimen left the party at 10:30, while it was still good. By midnight, for people who barely spoke to them had asked where they went. You know this thread. You answer in 90 seconds. They answer in 6 hours, and somehow the 6 hours is the one you keep rereading. One person gave you their whole evening. The other gave you a closed door. Guess which one you were still thinking about on the walk home. And here's the uncomfortable part. The thing you've been calling interest might just be an unfinished thought, running in the dark with their name stuck on it. So tonight we cut it open. Why the gap pulls and how the gap gets faked. By the end you'll be able to ask one plain question and tell a full life from a manufactured gap. Let's begin. First, the mechanism. Start with what your head actually does with a person. It builds a model of them. What they'll say, what they'll do, where they'll be on a Thursday. That model is the whole of what you call knowing someone. And a model that works is a model your head stops touching. Finished work gets put away. This is the part nobody wants said out loud. Being fully available finishes the model fast. Answer every message, explain every mood, show up every time, and there's nothing left in you for anyone to solve. It isn't that you became boring. It's that the work got done, and attention only lives where work is left. Now the other case. Slight unavailability leaves a hole the model can't fill. The file won't close, and a file that won't close doesn't sit quietly in a drawer, it stays out on the desk. Bluma Zygarnik watched waiters in a Vienna cafe in the 20s. They could recall every unpaid order in perfect detail, and forgot each one the moment the bill was settled. The paid tab evaporates. The open tab gets carried around all night. That's not affection, that's bookkeeping. So the 6-hour gap isn't empty. Your head spends it running the tab. Where are they? Who with? Was it something I said? And all that running has a temperature. It doesn't feel like arithmetic. Feels like heat. Which brings us to the finding this whole episode hangs from. You are not thinking about them because they're compelling. They're compelling because you're thinking about them. The thinking came first. Now the strange twist. All that churn in your head needs a name, and your head is a terrible librarian. It never files the feeling under unfinished. It files it under interested. From the inside, rehearsal and wanting are the same event. You cannot feel the difference. Nobody can. Count how many times someone crosses your mind in a day. That number feels like a verdict about them. It's a verdict about the gap they left. So look at what actually gets divided. The available person takes up your evenings, your ordinary Wednesdays, your real hours. The distant one takes up none of your hours and all of your head. And you quietly mistake the second one for the bigger relationship. It isn't bigger. It's just louder in the only room you can hear. Meanwhile, the friend who answers in 90 seconds hasn't crossed your mind in a year. That same friend would drive 4 hours for you tonight and you know it. Airtime is not value. Airtime is unresolvedness. Those two get confused every single day in almost every head. Test it right now. Picture whoever you can't stop replaying, then name 3 concrete things about their ordinary Tuesday. Most people come up empty. That blank is the tell you were never knowing a person. You were running a model with a hole in it. Second finding. The intensity you feel toward someone slightly out of reach is mostly the sound of your own machinery. Running. They aren't doing that to you. It's happening in you, and they're just the shape of the hole it runs around. Third cut, and this is where it gets precise. The word doing all the work in tonight's title is slightly. Fully available closes the file one way. You know all of it, so the machinery stops. But fully unavailable closes the file too. Different door, same silence. Someone who moves away and never writes again does not haunt you for long. Absence with no oxygen just goes out. Grief closes files. It hurts far more, and it eventually stops running. The open loop hurts less and never stops. So there's a band. Enough contact to keep the model alive. Enough gap that it can never finish. That's why the person who cancels twice and then arrives lit up owns your week. And the one who simply vanishes only owns a fortnight. Which tells you something sharp. Anyone running this on purpose has to keep a schedule. Drift too far and you'd be free of them. Skinner found it in a box with a lever. Feed the animal every time and it works calmly. Feed it sometimes, unpredictably, and it will work the lever until it drops. Reliable reward makes a relaxed animal. Unreliable reward makes a vigilant one. Vigilance is not the same as love, but it lives in the same part of the body. So check your own shoulders the next time their name lights the screen. Notice you weren't relaxed. You were waiting. Third finding. What you've been calling chemistry may simply be a schedule doing its patient work on you. And anything we can describe this cleanly can be reproduced. Which is where tonight turns. Manufactured unavailability. The gap with nothing behind it. So let's say the ethics out loud, once and plainly. You are here to see the gap, not to dig one. Never run this on anyone who trusts you. The tactics are dull once you see them. The reply typed out fully and then held for 4 hours. The plan kept vague. Let's see how the week goes. The door kept exactly ajar all year on purpose. That takes work. Nobody does that much work by accident. But here's the good news, and it's better than you'd expect. The counterfeit fails one plain question. Ask what they were actually doing, not accusingly. Just ask. Real unavailability has a life behind it, and lives are made of furniture. They were at their sister's, they were on a deadline, they were asleep by 9 like an old man. Notice how boring the true answers are. Boring, specific, checkable. That's the sound of a real day. The manufactured gap has no furniture. You get weather instead. Busy, crazy week, lot going on. Tell 2, and this one is the cleanest in the episode. Watch how present they are once they're actually in front of you. A genuinely busy person, once they arrive, is completely there. The life that kept them away also fills them up. The strategist is unavailable even in the room. Half turned toward the door, glancing at the phone, keeping a little back. The gap follows them in because the gap is the whole product. So there's your line. The full life gives you all of itself for 2 hours. The empty room gives you a sliver, forever. Tell 3. Ask whether the gap ever narrows. Real distance closes when the deadline passes. The busy season ends and they surface. Manufactured distance gets maintained at exactly the same width year after year. That isn't a life. That's a policy. Now the turn, and it's the part that stings. Knowing all this does not switch off the pull. You'll read the mechanism and still lie there at 1 in the morning. And suspicion won't save you either. Suspicion is just another way of thinking about them. The loop doesn't care what you're feeling, only that it's still running. The only defense is closing the file yourself. Ask the direct question, take the plain answer, and let the tab get paid. Almost nobody does it. And that's the confession sitting under this whole episode. You don't ask because you'd rather keep the mystery than lose the feeling. Some part of you doesn't want them. It wants the wanting. Last cut. What do you do with this? Run it clean and spot it dirty. Running it clean is not a delay tactic. Don't manufacture a gap. Go build a life that makes one honestly, and then don't apologize for it. And when you're there, be all the way there. That's the whole trick, and it isn't a trick. Now spot it dirty. Think of the last person who was always just slightly out of reach, and ask what was behind the door. A life you couldn't get all of, or a lever held at the right height on a schedule. That's tonight's finding. The charisma of being slightly unavailable was never theirs. It's the sound of your own head, refusing to close a file, and calling that noise a person. Case closed. The most magnetic person you know may simply be the one you never got to finish. Same table next week.